Before the wedding, Orion personally accompanied me for hymen repair surgery. However, on our wedding night, he still refused to come near me. Afterwards, while drinking with friends, he finally expressed his true feelings. I know I'm not good enough for Alara, but every time I think about her being touched by those people, I still feel very uncomfortable. Fortunately, it wasn't Serafina who was hurt back then. I stood at the door, unable to stop the tears from flowing. Orion seems to have forgotten that I got hurt back then to save him. After sobering up, Orion turned back into that caring husband, attentive to every detail. He even took the initiative to mention wanting to have a child with me. I thought he wanted to live a good life with me, but unexpectedly, Orion actually wanted to use my child's corneas to replace Serafina's severely myopic ones. Since that's the case, I've decided to let Orion see me and the child die on the delivery bed. When I walked out of the operating room, I was in so much pain that my face was pale, and my legs were shaking. Orion was smiling and texting on WeChat. When he saw me come out, he immediately turned off his phone. "Is it done?" I pursed my lips and nodded. Orion stood up while swinging the car keys. "Then let's go. I'll drive you home." Before getting out of the car, I hesitated for a moment and grabbed Orion's wrist. "Orion, the wedding is coming up, but we haven't taken our wedding photos yet." Orion frowned and said, "Let's do it tomorrow. I've been so busy lately that I almost forgot." Having just completed my surgery, I was in so much pain that I could barely stand. After slowly opening the car door and getting out, Orion impatiently stepped on the gas and sped away. I knew he was eager to see Serafina. Today was the day she returned to the country. I returned to the wedding house and started packing, trying not to think about those things. This is my dream home, and every detail of the room is designed by me. Orion didn't come home until very late. On my social media feed, Serafina posted a new photo. She was with a group of friends, leaning on Orion's shoulder, smiling for a selfie while wearing glasses. The caption read, "I'm so glad to have you by my side." I threw my phone aside, not wanting to look anymore. Orion promised during the proposal that he would always treat me well after we got married and would never let me suffer any grievances. I had no right to ask him for anything more. For someone like me, it was already a big deal that he was willing to marry me. I'm willing to give him some appropriate space. When I woke up in a daze, it was already 9 in the morning. Orion promised to take me to take wedding photos but didn't come home all night. I have already booked the photographer and don't want to let anyone down, so I had no choice but to call him. The call finally connected, but there was no sound on the other end. Just as I was about to hang up, Serafina's choked voice came through the phone. "Orion, the doctor overseas said my eyesight is no longer operable. I'm still young and don't want to wear such thick glasses for the rest of my life. I never wore glasses before." Orion sighed and gently comforted me. "Serafina, don't worry. I will find a way to heal your eyes. If it really doesn't work, I will always be with you, to be your eyes." After the call ended, Orion's voice still echoed in my ears. Serafina's mention of a lifetime and what I heard about a lifetime overlapped, stabbing into my heart like a knife. I never expected a man's promise could be so easily spoken. I forced a smile and sent a message asking Orion when he would come back to take the wedding photos. After waiting a long time, Orion finally replied to me. I quickly made a phone call. "Didn't we agree to take photos today? I have already booked the photographer. How can we not use the wedding venue for photos?" Orion hurriedly responded that the appointment can be cancelled. "Just find someone random to edit a few photos. Serafina has a fever and needs someone to take care of her." Alara, you really understand. Serafina got hurt to protect me, so I can't leave her side now. Before I could say anything, Orion was called away by Serafina and hurriedly hung up the phone. Be smart. You should know that in Orion's heart, I am the most important. With your shortcomings, what makes you think you can marry him? Don't expect to get anything other than the title of Mrs. Orion. Serafina kept sending me provocative messages, and I couldn't help but close my eyes. Orion seemed completely unconcerned about this. To save him, I was the one who got hurt worse than Serafina back then. Orion and I are first loves, we grew up together, and naturally, we confirmed our relationship. In his heart, I have always been the most important. However, everything changed after Serafina transferred here. Orion no longer brought breakfast just for me, now there was one for Serafina too. Tutoring is no longer just my responsibility. On the way home from school, he would even abandon me to take a detour to drop off Serafina. He said he just felt sorry for Serafina, abandoned by her parents and left to live alone. After the college entrance examination, he and Serafina often went to bars together. Once, they got into a conflict with a group of drunk men at dawn. When I received Serafina's call for help, I didn't think much and just threw on a coat to find them. Orion tried to pull Serafina away, but they were cornered in a dark alley. When I arrived, I saw that group of people ready to strike with sticks. My voice trembled as I held my phone high, anxiously shouting that I had called the police. But those drunk people didn't feel scared. Instead, they moved closer to me. Just as I was being pinned to the ground by a group of people, Orion rushed over to confront them. The leading man raised his stick to hit Orion, but Serafina blocked him with her body. Blood streamed down from Serafina's head, and Orion was terrified. My clothes were torn, and it hurt so much that I cried out. "If we don't leave soon, we're going to drag this girl in too." I had already been harmed, and to minimize the damage, Orion took Serafina and ran away. By the time the police finally arrived, those people had just gotten off me. Although they were punished by the law, I still couldn't forget that terrible night. My father suddenly passed away from the shock. At that time, Orion was kneeling in front of my father's grave, swearing to marry me and ensure I would no longer be hurt. But he didn't know that the pain in my heart could never be healed. For the first time, I didn't want to be so understanding. There were no wedding photos in a wedding dress, and I wasn't the only one embarrassed. The day before the wedding, Orion finally returned home, but he was smoking one after another on the balcony. "If you don't want to marry me, it's still not too late to cancel the wedding now. I won't blame you." Hearing this, Orion suddenly turned around. "What are you talking about, Alara? I said I would always take care of you. There is nothing inappropriate between Serafina and me, so don't overthink it." The wedding proceeds as usual. Mom took Dad's place and handed me over to Orion. Just as we were exchanging rings, a commotion suddenly erupted among the guests. "Where are my glasses? Who took my glasses? I can't see clearly, Orion. Orion, come save me!" Orion instinctively wanted to run off the stage, and I tightly held his hand. "Orion, we haven't exchanged the rings yet. If you leave, our wedding will be over." Orion paused for a moment, then hurriedly slipped the ring onto my finger. "Don't overthink it. I'll go take a look and be right back. The wedding won't end. You are my wife, Orion, so don't think about running away." Orion found Serafina's glasses and held her in his arms to comfort her. It was only when the in-laws called Orion back that this mishap came to an end. The guests looked at me with eyes filled with sympathy. Finally, after the wedding ended, Orion pushed me into the bathroom like a child trying to please. "I'll wait for you outside." The lights dimmed, and Orion fell onto the bed with me in his arms. His breathing was somewhat rapid, but it stopped at the last moment. Orion pushed me away and leaned against the bed, starting to gag. I felt a chill in my heart. Orion finally sat up straight, his expression towards me filled with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Alara. I didn't mean it like that. I might have eaten something bad last night, so don't think too much about it." I pulled the blanket over myself. "You're tired too. Just go to sleep." I understood that Orion, like me, needed to face the hurdle in his heart. "I won't force him. I'll give him some time." But later, at a friend's gathering, I went to pick up a drunken Orion. As soon as I reached the door of the private room, I heard him sigh and say, "I really can't help it. Just thinking about getting close to Alara makes me uncomfortable. I know I owe her, but I've already married her, so I consider that a form of compensation. I also want to have a normal married life with her, but she has been touched by so many people. Even after repair, I still feel uncomfortable inside." I couldn't help but tremble all over, and tears began to flow. However, my suffering is far from over. No one knows that I am standing at the door, listening to Orion's reckless words. Fortunately, I saved Serafina back then. Alara only lost her innocence, while Serafina almost lost her eyesight. I still haven't compensated Serafina. I turned to leave, not wanting to listen any longer. But when I looked back, I saw Serafina leaning against the wall, wearing a faint smile. "Alara, you are truly a joke. If I were you, I would have divorced and left by now. I really can't understand how you can shamelessly stay by Orion's side." I wiped away the tears on my face and gave a cold smile. Then, I slapped Serafina's face. "Am I that shameless? Then what are you? A mistress who can't be seen in public?" No matter how you put it, I am still Orion's legal wife. If there's a divorce, let Orion talk to me. It's not for you to meddle. When Orion returned home, his face was terrifyingly dark. He yanked me up from the bed and shoved a photo of Serafina's swollen face directly in front of me. Alara, you've always been the most considerate and understanding of me. How could you go after Serafina? You know very well she did it for me. I coldly interrupted Orion. She got hurt for you. What about me? Being disliked and looked down upon, isn't that also for you? Orion was taken aback. This is the first time in years that I've directly spoken about this. I also have nearsightedness and my vision isn't great. Serafina just has worsening eyesight. Wearing glasses can solve it. Is it really that serious? Orion, stop making excuses for your actions. Do you want a divorce? I can set you free. Orion awkwardly pulled back his phone. Alara, I really have nothing to do with Serafina. I just feel guilty. I didn't expect you would resort to violence. I've already apologized to you and Serafina. Let's consider this matter settled and not bring it up again. Don't use divorce to hurt me. We've grown up together. I'm so used to having you by my side. I can't live without you. Yeah, it's just a habit. Orion is, in my heart, just a habit. In the following days, Orion seemed to intentionally avoid me, coming home late every night. Perhaps he didn't want me to bring up the past. One day, he returned home just before dawn, reeking of alcohol. I couldn't bear to let him sleep on the floor, so I took off his coat and helped him to bed. At that moment, Orion opened his eyes and stared at me intently. Alara, let's have a child. With a child, you can rest assured. Then the three of us can live happily together. After saying that, Orion fell asleep. I thought he was just rambling in his drunken state, but the next morning, he actually dragged me to the hospital. Orion called the IVF center. I looked at him, somewhat confused, but quickly understood. He wants a child but doesn't want to have any intimate contact with me. He still thinks I'm unclean. Orion avoided my gaze, rubbed his nose, and looked very uncomfortable. Isn't it promoting eugenics now? Our child must be the healthiest and highest quality baby in the world. He pushed me into the examination room, and the doctor asked me to lie on the examination bed. The cold instruments just touched me and were immediately taken away by the doctor. What is going on? Don't you have an intimate life as a couple? You're already adults. Don't you understand this? If you haven't even tried it yourself, how can you consider in vitro fertilization? I felt my face turn red from being scolded and quietly got dressed before leaving. Orion smiled at the doctor and said, "That's not the case, doctor. We just want a quality next generation. We want to go straight to in vitro fertilization, one step at a time." The doctor threw the registration slip at Orion and scolded, "This is ridiculous. You're wasting medical resources like this. Moreover, no matter how advanced artificial techniques are, they can't compare to natural conception. And besides, she hasn't even had a married life. How can she undergo examinations for in vitro fertilization?" Ignoring Orion, I said to the doctor, "Thank you," and then left the hospital. Orion caught up with me and grabbed my hand. "Alara, don't be angry. I didn't mean anything else." I looked directly into Orion's eyes and asked him expressionlessly, "So what exactly do you want to express? You can just tell me directly. It's not the first time you've been dissatisfied with me. I've long gotten used to it." Orion was at a loss for words. I forcefully shook off his hand and left him there. He disappeared for a whole day and night. When Orion returned home, he still reeked of alcohol. Since Serafina returned to her country, he has been using alcohol to escape our problems. Orion didn't say a word. He just pushed me down onto the bed. He held my hand tightly, and I was too weak to struggle. That night, we finally felt as intimate as a normal couple. When I woke up, Orion had already left. If it weren't for those red marks on the sheets, I would think everything from last night was just a dream. Maybe I was lucky. I got pregnant on the first try. On the day I confirmed my pregnancy, Orion was so happy that he picked me up and spun me around twice. "That's great, Alara. Do you know how happy I am? We are finally going to have a child." Orion's expression at this moment is something I haven't seen in a long time. Since that incident happened, he hasn't been this happy for almost forever. Maybe he really likes kids and genuinely wants to work on this marriage with me. After all, this is my own child, and I am looking forward to their arrival. Orion gently cradled me in his hands. Worried that I might harm the baby by being exposed to secondhand smoke, Orion quit smoking and drinking, and even started researching pregnant women's diets every day. Everything is developing in a positive direction. When I was 4 months pregnant, Orion accompanied me to the checkup. He kept asking the doctor if the baby in my belly was healthy. Even the doctor laughed at him for being a first-time dad and being a bit too nervous. When Orion went to get the test results, I received several messages on my phone. After reading the content, my legs went weak, and I collapsed to the ground. Warm liquid flowed out from beneath me. My consciousness gradually faded, and I heard someone nearby shouting, "Help, someone. There's been an incident here." Closing my eyes, Orion rushed towards me. Elara, what happened to you? Help, someone. Please come and save my child." Orion immediately panicked, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead, and hurriedly grabbed a nurse. "Get another person. There's a pregnant woman here who has fainted." Upon hearing this, the nurse immediately rushed to the pregnant woman behind Orion, who was bleeding profusely and had lost vital signs. After the doctor treated me, I opened my eyes while lying on the hospital bed. Orion was by my side, his eyes red. "Elara, are you okay? The doctor said you have some bleeding and need to rest in bed." If it weren't for seeing those messages, I would have been very touched by Orion's concern for me. Serafina sent me several photos and a short video clip. It's Orion's medical report. He underwent many infectious disease tests. The tests were conducted the day after we first met. I didn't expect him to be so scared, afraid that I might infect him with something. In the video, Orion's voice was very sincere. "Serafina, I asked many doctors, and they all said that in your situation, the only option is to try to replace the cornea." Serafina's voice carried a sense of grievance. "But who would be willing to donate their cornea to me? Can Elara do it?" Orion gently stroked her hair and held her in his arms. "Elara's eyesight isn't great either. If you want to change, you need to get the best cornea. I've thought about it. I will have a child with Elara, and when the child is old enough for surgery, I will give you the child's cornea. Serafina, I will definitely heal your eyes." Serafina still wasn't satisfied and tightly hugged Orion's waist. "Orion, I have already lost everything. I can't lose you. I don't want to see you and Elara doing so well. I love you and want to be with you." Serafina couldn't help but gently stroke Orion's face and slowly kissed his lips. Orion did not push her away. "Serafina, I'm doing all this to heal your eyes." Serafina unbuttoned her clothes. "I don't care. Your first time can only be with me. I've become like this all for you." "Orion, Elara really isn't that great. I don't want such a pure you to be with her." Orion couldn't resist the temptation. He ended up with Serafina. I couldn't help but feel a chill run through me. It turns out that Orion is even willing to sacrifice his child's eyes for Serafina. But that's his own flesh and blood. He can choose not to love me. He can look down on me. But what wrong did our child do? He came into this world full of joy. How do I tell him that his life is actually a sacrifice made by his father to save his lover? No wonder Orion is so anxious about me. He is worried about Serafina's future corneas. On the day I was discharged, Orion was always supporting me. "No need. I'm fine." I pushed his hand away, trying to stay calm and not let Orion notice my unease. "I have to save my child." Orion's phone kept ringing, and he couldn't take the call in front of me. I glanced over. It was Serafina calling. I pretended not to notice and forced a smile. "You go ahead and do your work. I can go back by myself." Orion hesitated for a moment, and I patted his arm. "It's fine. I was just thinking of visiting my mom." Hearing me say this, Orion finally felt relieved and helped me call a taxi. As soon as the car door closed, he immediately took out his phone to make a call, then turned to look for Serafina. Our directions are exactly opposite, just like our relationship, growing further apart. One day, we will become strangers. When I arrived at my mom's door, I hesitated to knock. After my accident, Dad also passed away, and she fell into a deep depression for many years. She used to be a renowned obstetrician in the city, but now she has retired to a secondary role. I can't bear to hurt her again. I'm afraid she won't be able to handle it like Dad did. I can't lose my only family member again. Who else can help me besides my mom? When the door opened, my mom saw my confused expression and immediately pulled me inside. I sensed movement at the door. "What's wrong, Elara? Is Orion bullying you?" I wanted to speak, but not a word came out. Tears just kept streaming down my face. My mom was extremely anxious and quickly asked me what had happened. With no other choice, I had to show my mom the thing Serafina sent me. After seeing it, she trembled all over and wanted to confront Orion. I stopped her. Mom, I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. I want to leave him forever. But he didn't agree to the divorce before, and now with the child, he definitely won't let me go to get a cornea transplant for Serafina. I would rather die in front of him than let him hurt my child. My mom sat on the sofa, not saying anything. After a while, she tightly held my hand. Alara, would you be willing to go to a strange city, give up your current life, and start a new journey? I nodded vigorously. Mom slowly said, there is a new drug abroad that can make a person appear to have lost all vital signs. My former senior brother was involved in the research and development of this drug. Alara, are you willing to give it a try? Of course I am. However, to ensure the health of the baby in my belly, our plan can only be executed during delivery. I snuggled up to my mom like when I was a child, with her by my side. I was not afraid of anything. Alara, Mom will definitely support you. Mom returned to work just to help me give birth herself. I've stopped caring about Orion and Serafina. I just want to focus on my pregnancy and wait for the delivery. But by the time I was 7 months pregnant, Serafina finally couldn't hold back. She took advantage of Orion's absence and entered my house with a key. Serafina casually sat on the sofa, completely acting like the owner of the place. How did you get in? Serafina scoffed at this and shook the key in her hand. Of course, it's the key Orion gave me. He gives me whatever I want. Alara, you really are pitiful. You decorated this house yourself. Orion never cared about it at all. He doesn't like your style at all. Because he doesn't care about you, it doesn't matter how you are. Serafina gently stroked her belly, and the sight of her protruding stomach was blinding to me. My gaze slowly moved up and landed on Serafina's face. At that moment, I noticed she wasn't wearing her glasses. Serafina usually always wears glasses. She says that without them, she feels like an invisible adult. There can only be one reason for the current situation. Your eyes are actually fine, right? Serafina honestly said that when I was first injured, I really couldn't see clearly. But once the hematoma in my brain was absorbed, my vision returned to normal. I tightly gripped the recording phone hidden in my pocket and asked, why didn't you tell Orion? You just watched him sacrifice my child for you? What did I do wrong? Why are you treating me this way? Serafina stood up and looked at her belly, which seemed to be 5 months pregnant. Orion isn't just after a fleeting happiness with Serafina. Maybe they had planned it all along. After sacrificing my child, their family of 3 could finally reunite. Alara, I just don't like you. Why do you get to have everything? You have a happy family and Orion as your first love. I just want to destroy you, ruin everything you have. You once called me a mistress. Do you understand now? In a relationship, the one who is unloved is the real mistress. Serafina lunged at me, trying to harm my belly. Do you also want to bear Orion's child? That's truly absurd. I struggled desperately, but gradually lost my strength. Just at the moment Orion opened the door, Serafina let go of me. I didn't see Orion. I just kicked Serafina away with a strong will to survive. Serafina screamed, and blood flowed from her leg. Serafina! Orion rushed over without hesitation and embraced Serafina. Alara, do you really want to kill someone? I've really misjudged people my whole life. You are truly a ruthless character. No wonder you get bullied by those people. It's all self-inflicted. If it weren't for Serafina, do you think you could carry my child? Orion picked up Serafina and quickly went to the hospital. I lay helplessly on the floor, looking at my bleeding leg, struggling to call 120. During the wait, tears flowed uncontrollably. Only those closest to you know where it hurts. I was pushed to the door of the operating room by the paramedics, while Orion sat in the hallway, silent. Alara, do you still dare to come to the hospital? You know that Serafina has miscarried, right? The emergency doctor pushed her aside and said urgently that the situation for the mother was critical and surgery was required immediately. Do you know her family members? Quick, Call someone to come and sign. Orion was taken aback and said, I am her husband. The medical staff were stunned by his expression. Orion quickly signed and pleaded with the doctor to save the baby. At this moment, he was still thinking about Serafina. The emergency doctor handed me over to the obstetrics department, and standing at the front was unexpectedly my mother. She quickly administered oxytocin to me, but it was still too late. The child I struggled to give birth to had already lost its breath in my womb. Perhaps he felt disappointed with this world as well. My mother leaned close to my ear and asked if I was ready. I nodded. The patient needs immediate hemostasis. Prepare the anesthesia and start the surgery. The medical staff present were all my mother's colleagues, and the new medication that was prepared was injected into my body. Mom, I stared at her and said, I want Orion to see me die. I hope Orion carries this regret for a lifetime, remembering me like a nightmare. Ilara's family. The mother has encountered complications during labor, the fetus has already lost its life, and now the mother is experiencing severe bleeding and needs to see you. Orion was quickly taken into the operating room. My mom held my hand, crying deeply. Seeing this, Orion immediately ran to my side. Ilara, what happened? Don't scare me. Mom, you are the best obstetrician. Please save Ilara. I struggled to open my eyes and with all my strength told Orion, if I could, I wish I had never met you in my life. You should bear the curse of me and the child, living in solitude for life, with no descendants. Orion kept shouting for everyone to come and save him. I slowly closed my eyes, tears streaming down involuntarily. The heart monitor emitted a piercing alarm sound. My mom said with a choked voice that the deceased was Ilara, and when Orion heard I was declared dead, he fainted on the spot. I opened my eyes again and found myself in a secret hospital room, with my mom keeping watch by my side. This is the hospital's laboratory, known only to the insiders. Ilara, you finally woke up. Due to the miscarriage and the effects of the medication, I was in a coma for a full 10 days. My mom sent Orion away and took care of my affairs by herself. She gave me a new ID and a plane ticket. It was a city with spring-like weather all year round, a place I had always wanted to visit. She said, Ilara, you go wait over there for Mom. After I resign and sell the house, I'll come find you. I found my phone and gave the recordings to my mom. After being discharged, I cut my hair short and started a new life. A year later, my mom came to find me with her luggage. We opened a guest house in the most scenic spot. Occasionally, she would tell me about the things that happened during that year. My mom didn't want Orion and Serafina to have an easy time, so she sent the recordings to Serafina. After learning Serafina's true identity, Orion was very angry. Before he could take action, the police arrived and took Serafina away. My mom reported it to the police with a recording, and Serafina was sentenced to 1 year in prison for intentional harm. At the same time, my mom plastered evidence of Orion's affair and the deaths of his wife and children all over the entrance of his company, resulting in Orion being fired that same day. After that, Orion knelt outside my mom's door every day, begging for her forgiveness. People like you deserve to be tormented by pain and guilt every single day. You are destined to never receive forgiveness. After she sold the house, Orion could no longer find her. This past year, I've been doing well. The weather here is warm, the scenery is beautiful, and every guest at the homestay has a story that heals me. The pain of losing the baby is gradually healing. Perhaps this is the baby's own choice. Rather than face this complicated world, it's better to choose a warm family again. In the next life, I will definitely be loved and awaited sincerely. Life could have settled down if I never encountered Orion again. He stood at the entrance of the guest house, looking haggard. After not seeing him for a year, he seemed to have aged over 10 years in an instant. Ilara, it's really you. He found this guest house online. There was a photo taken by a guest that showed my profile. Orion was incredibly happy and immediately bought a plane ticket to rush over. He was excited and wanted to hug me, but I took a step back to avoid him. Ilara, I truly know I was wrong. After losing you, I realized that the person I truly love in my heart is you. Ilara, I really can't live without you. Can you give me another chance? Let's put the past behind us and start anew. I stared at his face, feeling no emotion at all. I really have forgotten the past, including everything about you and my love for you. Orion, we are just strangers now. Perhaps never seeing each other again is our best choice. Orion knelt on the ground, holding his head and crying like a child. Ilara, What happened? I turned around and saw my guest house investor, Caspian, walking over. He thought someone was causing trouble and immediately stood in front of me. Orion looked up at the towering Caspian, with red eyes questioning me. Elara, who is he? I can't believe you could forget me so easily. Are you kidding me? Caspian couldn't help but laugh. I'm Elara's most devoted suitor. Do you have anything to say? Orion awkwardly got up from the ground, staring at me, hoping for a different answer. But I completely ignored him and turned to leave. Orion wanted to chase after me, but Caspian grabbed him by the collar and threw him out the door. Since then, Orion came every day. His persistence made Caspian lose all patience, so he put up a sign at the inn's entrance. Dogs are welcome, but Orion is not. He stood at the door like a guardian, making me unable to hold back my laughter. As soon as Orion saw me, it was as if he had finally found hope. Elara, I've figured it out. You still care about Serafina, right? I've known all along that she was lying to me. I don't want to have anything to do with her anymore. Elara, I will show you the results with my actions. I directly splashed a basin of water onto Orion. He looked like a drenched rat. In the evening, on the terrace of the guest house, Caspian draped a coat over me. I gazed at the starry sky and told Caspian my story. After listening, Caspian clenched his fists, his nails nearly digging into his palms. I slowly pried his fingers open one by one. Caspian, you are truly a good person. You shouldn't be with someone like me who has a tainted past. Caspian covered my mouth, his eyes filled with concern. Elara, I won't allow you to say that about yourself. A person's purity is not determined by their body, but by their heart. You haven't done anything wrong. The past shouldn't bind you. In my heart, you are the purest person in the world. I felt a wave of warmth as Caspian held me tightly. In this world, some will mock my scars, but there are also those who help me stitch them up when I'm hurt, comforting me that it's okay. Caspian didn't force me to accept his love. He just wanted me to know that I deserve to be treated well, regardless of whether I want to be his girlfriend or not. When I received the message from Orion again, it was already late at night. A friend request came from an unfamiliar number. I thought it was a guest from the homestay, so I accepted it without thinking much. The other party immediately sent a video. In the video, the recently released Serafina was being pinned down by a group of thugs, being bullied. In the darkest alley of my past life, she was calling out Orion's name in pain, and Orion was nearby, focused on recording the video, completely ignoring her cries for help. Haven't you always said Elara is dirty? You should experience the harm Elara suffered yourself. Serafina shouted loudly. Elara, do you still want to continue hurting me? You are really too much. Upon hearing these words, Orion angrily grabbed a stick and swung it at Serafina. You're just garbage. How dare you speak Elara's name? One man after another left Serafina, and she no longer had the strength to struggle. Orion, do you think you're so great? If I don't deserve to mention Elara, do you? Weren't you the one who hurt Elara the most? What are you doing here again, you romantic fool? Orion was so enraged by Serafina that he struck her fiercely with a stick. Serafina slowly became still. Elara, I avenged you. I called the police and forwarded the video Orion sent to them. Then I completely blocked Orion. By the time the police arrived, Serafina was already gone. Orion was taken away. I don't want to concern myself with how long he'll be sentenced. I just want to live my life well. I've managed the guest house very well and opened several branches. My mom really loves to travel now. She often says she wants to take my dad to see the beautiful scenery of our country before they get old. Caspian has always been by my side. He doesn't pressure me but never leaves me. As the New Year's bells rang, dazzling fireworks lit up the sky. Under that brilliant light, Caspian turned to look at me, his eyes shining more beautifully than the fireworks. Miss Elara, may I have the honor of being your boyfriend and creating a beautiful future together? This was Caspian's 9th confession to me. I looked up at him and smiled, saying, sure. Years later, I received a strange phone call, and it was from the prison. Orion has passed away. The guard told me he left a letter and wanted to give it to me. Orion behaved well in prison and originally had a chance for a reduced sentence. When his parents visited him, Orion mentioned that he missed me and wondered how I was doing. Worried about their son, the elderly couple found their way here based on the address. That day was my wedding with Caspian. I wore a pure white wedding dress, and the venue was filled with sweet wedding photos. The old couple sighed and took my wedding photo back to give to Orion. When Orion saw the photo, he remembered the wedding photos we never got to take and was overwhelmed with sadness. That night, he made an extreme choice in prison. Miss Alara, if it's inconvenient for you to pick up Orion's letter, we can mail it to you. It's fine. Thank you. I thanked the guard and said that I wasn't close to Orion, so there was no need to send it to me. Just throw the letter away. I don't need it. The guard didn't insist any further and hung up the phone. The wind blew through my hair, and Caspian called me from the kitchen. Alara, don't sit by the door. Be careful not to catch a chill. Come and try the new dishes I've made. I gently caress my still subtle belly, where a new life is beginning to sprout. My child, this time you will arrive in love and anticipation. Caspian kneels on one knee, his ear close to my belly. Baby, be good, and when you grow up, you must help Dad take care of Mom. I smile at him, our eyes filled with love for each other. The past is already behind us. My future will be colorful and filled with warmth.